Not quite the same level, but has shown some promise in these series. He has gotten the top 3 players in his last series, so let's see if maybe he can pull out a win now that he's not against one of them.
That's a good question, and I don't have an answer for you. Luckily, these players do, because in the bottom left now in the red, you mentioned it for Apprentice Esports, he is Ukko.
And in the top right, ladies and gentlemen, this is my first time getting to introduce him from License to Kill. It's Binski. And I gotta say, there's nothing like a really baller team name followed by the name Binski. It definitely has a weird ring to it almost.
I mean, okay, so if you're learning to beatbox, they say you're supposed to say boots and cats. Yeah, boots and cats and boots and cats. Is there a version of beatboxing where it's Bininski and Bininski? No? Okay, well, you know what? I tried.
You know, maybe I have to rethink everything I learned when I learned beatboxing. now that you said that, my mind has been opened, but yeah, it's going to be interesting, especially if you say these two players, their names back to back. You're suddenly going to turn into a sim saying Ukko Binski.
I hate it. Thank you.
Yeah. You're going to have a giant green crystal appear over your head, and all of your actions will not be decided by you, and you'll live in constant pain. Regardless,
wait,
we are going to see
that was my life anyways.
Oh, right. You're a PhD student.
Yeah.
Regardless, we are going to see this SCV just do a quick scout, sees the creep, and Binski should know, all right, this is a regular opening with a normal pool timing. We are going to see Ukko here get the 100 gas for speed and pull off. So it's going to be a very economical opening here for the Zerg. You get the speed, you're going to get the Zerglings, but there's going to be no Banelings. It's just Queens, Lings, getting early third base, and you are macroing up off of that.
I heard zoom. That's all I care about. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We're not going to see anything super crazy right now with that factory opening, and again with what Ukko is doing with quick speed, third base. He killed a Ling. It's a 4-Ling opening. Calm yourself, Titan. It's going to be okay.
I mean, I can't help but get excited. You know, it's Reaper Micro. This is the most important part of the early game, but it is just going to mean that Binski is going to be able to scout out all this stuff. Ukko obviously managing to dodge any damage being done to the drone line, which is what you want. And we're actually going to see double Hellions coming out from here on out. The question is, will it be a tech lab onto that barracks for a swap over, or will it just be something like a Viking? Will be the tech lab. Of course, could still be just for an early stim, but usually you don't end up seeing that. With the second racks, though, still could be possible.
It absolutely could be. And really, I don't have a lot of information on these players in terms of, I can talk about future and say, yeah, he tends to be aggressive. He tends to maybe like those 8 racks plays or those 5 racks pressures. I can tell you that Ukko he's been doing a decent amount of prep with Scarlet. At least he's good friends with her. They do talk a decent amount. So we might look to see some of her influence in how he plays. But that's not fair to Ukko to say, well, you know, he's friends with Scarlet, so very clearly he's going to play like Scarlet does. It's not really how that works. Scarlet's also friends with No Regret, and they play very differently.
Yeah, and we're just going to see this poking. Actually, does manage to snipe a creep tumor with the 2 Hellions and a Reaper, which is already very, very nice for the Terran. Slowing down that creep spread in any way you can, slowing down the growth of the Zerg in any way you can is always useful. As we are just going to be seeing the stim come back down early. So it's a bit of a almost delayed 2-1-1 that we are seeing here out of Binski, where you get the factory first for the Hellions, and then you swap into what would be a usual 2-1-1 timing, getting the factory, going to be swapping that over for medevacs. And this is a build that we've seen some players experiment with and kind of mix into their openings just to throw off their opponents.
Absolutely. The TY 2-1-1, as it were, where you do have a third base, you have a little bit more map control, but you do have that early pressure as well. So we're going to have to see whether Ukko is prepared for it. He does have a Baneling Nest on the way, and the Baneling Nest should be done by the time this pressure really shows up in earnest. Notice what Binski is doing, too. He's not really trying to look for an opportunity to dive into a mineral line, although realistically that's a rare opportunity anyways. He's not trying to put pressure on Queens necessarily. he is just really committed on making sure that the creep is not too far forward because, again, in general, that's what a Terran wants to do, but particularly when we're looking at a 2-on-1 type setup, it does mean that it's just a lot easier for the Terran to actually make the push happen in earnest. Also, binski, he's leaning to his tech a little bit more than you might otherwise expect. He's going to have a tank with this push, and that makes it a lot scarier.
Absolutely, and this will all be coming through before the Spire is done, mind you. That just started up here for Ukko, so he's going to be using that, and the Lynx, I don't think they even see the medevacs. They will just be scouted by this first Overlord. Luckily, does have plenty of leftover supply here for the Zergs. That should not supply cap him, as actually trying to skirt the vision. And now bring on in the Marines, and for Ukko, I mean, what do you have? You have 12 Lings. That is not enough to fight against this army. Immediately going to add on 12 more. Needs to get up to that magical number of 20 or more. Because until then, well, it's a lot of transfuses being popped on an Overlord, and now the Queens might be the next target, but binski is just going to get on out. Doesn't want to commit too far in.
No, he doesn't, but I feel like he probably should. Granted, with all those queens, it's hard, sure, but we don't really have the reinforcements coming over on the other side of the map just yet. But Ukko, he's kind of been caught in this timing where he's waiting for Spire, he's banking 1,000 gas. He literally had 12 Lings showing up for that fight. That felt like a timing that binski could get a lot more than he did, but even still, knocking the Overlord, getting so much Korean energy, knocking down all this creep. It does mean that binski, while maybe he didn't do game-ending damage or even truly game-defining damage in that push, it opens up room for him to find value for the next one. But for now, Ukko, he's survived this phase of the game. He has 13 mutas on the way, spending all of that banked up gas, +1 for the mutas even before 1-1 on the ground. He's going to commit heavily to his air tech and try to pin binski back into that core 3.
Yeah, as we're going to have another set of medevacs. We're going to be moving out here, and so far, binski, he hasn't scouted these mutas. He doesn't know that they're on the map, and that can be very, very dangerous when you're the Terran trying to be aggressive, and then suddenly a muta backstab comes across the map, but it looks like they might reveal themselves just to deal with these medevacs. The Marines going to have to trade out the best that they can, pick on up and try and get out, but the focus fire is good, but the mutas have been revealed.
That's unfortunate there for binski. He picks up right before he sees the mutas, goes over dead airspace right before he sees the mutas. And all of a sudden, it's like, okay, well, these are not getting out. I'm going to lose these 16 Marines. And you talk about revealing mutas. Well, they're going to find this position before the missile turret does complete. So we're going to see 4 workers fall down to start. A couple Hellions, sure, because why not? And, yeah, getting on top of these barracks as well. So much production getting camped. And this is even before Ukko has his +1, before his mutas start to become really strong. But for now, he's going to get zoned out. I don't think any mutas... Okay, he's lost 1 muta here, but they're getting rather low, so he's going to have to wait for a second, wait for them to regen themselves back up. But we were talking about this. binski is going to feel pretty heavily pinned for the next couple minutes with the mutas ping-ponging between his bases. Every time he moves out, he's going to take damage. So I don't know how effective Terran aggression for the next, say, 2 or 3 minutes is really going to be.
Yeah, you're going to have to sit back. You're going to have to make sure that your defenses are solid. Luckily, Widowmine production has begun, and I love that binski is already mixing those in. He knows it's Thingbane Muta. I can just get Widowmines, and I already have a good tank count that has not been diminished at all, so he doesn't need to add on anymore until maybe he gets later into this game. Drilling Claws on the way is now looking to push here onto creep, but that is always dangerous. Look at this. It's just Ukko looking for kind of a counterattack here, and the wall isn't up. The Widowmine is going to get focused down, and as the Terran, he has to turn around. He's not going to risk trying to base race a Zerg. That's suddenly there are Lings in the main, and this is disastrous for binski.
And we saw binski there. He went and he waffled in the middle of the map. We saw his army move forward, move backwards. He was like, do I go all in here? What do I do? Wasn't quite sure, and that has just bought Ukko so much more time. Mutas are going to get on top of some supply depots. They're going to get 9 workers here. Marines, they get dropped trying to deal with these mutas. We have a drop in the main base, the 1 bit of army that binski did not want to send across the map or send back home, but that gets dealt with pretty easily. So now Ukko, he's up 50 army supply, and he's up in economy, and he's got a 4th base, and he's got a 5th base on the way, and he's got his 2-2 on the way, although binski's will be done soon, and that's the scary timing. That binski now has been able to clean up this run by a little bit. His upgrades are finishing in, well, vehicle plating is done in 10 seconds. This army, yes, it's not maxed out. It is going to be pretty scary for the next couple minutes.
Yeah, and you're going to have to see for binski, he has to sit back. He has to just pretty much defend, as this is so many mutalisks that are available. There is, though, this Widowmine by the missile turret. The bunker also is up. So you see the mutas can't just dive on, and they still get 5 worker kills though with the bouncing on their glaives. And I mean, Ukko, he is just starting to get massive as this Zerg on 5 bases is just going to dive past the missile turrets into the mineral line. But a Thor is here. And so far, binski just trying his hardest to stop damage from happening. As look at this, so many banelings rolling on through the tanks. Gonna try and create a buffer here, but the banelings just roll on through. They don't care. The baneling hits are good. Actually, the Widowmine hits are even better though, as most of the army is cleaned up. 15 SCVs go down, but binski's still at 56. And suddenly the supplies are more even.
That man, it felt like Ukko just really wanted to go for that bust. I mean, we see Flyer Carapace on the way instead of +2 muta, +2 flyer attack there for the Zerg. His 2-2 was not done, so he attacked, I guess because he felt like he had the tempo advantage, into a Terran that was 2-3 upgrades ahead of him, if we want to count that build or that mech armor, into a defensive, a sieged up position when he just had so much money wrapped up in the tech that was not there. And now he's going to try to make this push happen. Now he's going to try to make the defense happen, excuse me. But he does not have the 50 Banes that he had for that last push. He does not have that really solid supply lead that he had for that last push. But on the flip side, it is still scary for binski here. He has not started his 3-3. He's not going to have that massive timing lead that Terrans have traditionally loved against mutilating Banes. So we're going to be stuck in this mid-game idea for quite a while now. And that does give Ukko a lot more freedom on the map.
Yeah, as the Mulas once again gonna find their way into the main. Widowmine is dodged. Marines are gonna be brought to respond, and I think you're just seeing binski so far doing very, very good at dealing with this army. Ukko, he got just a little bit too aggressive. He really wanted to try and force the issue and ends up backfiring. The tanks very, very nicely are able to block for the Marines as they pull back, and then the Widowmine shots come through. And now you have a 4-base Terran. 71 workers is going to be working right now off of only 5 racks, though. And of course, as this production starts to kick into a higher gear, you're going to want to see that go up to 8 with the double factory. binski is also working on adding on that +3/+3, which is going to be ever so important in keeping that upgrade lead against this Zerg.
That it will, but again, the hive is there. binski only even starting his +3 attack, not +3 armor just yet. Even if he does have the gas for it, he really is lacking in minerals for right now. But we're not going to see that big lead. We're not going to see that 30-second, 2-minute timing that is so scary for Zerg players. But it is starting to feel like we're going to have your traditional hardwire game. Titan, we had one of these with Bly earlier on, and Akaran almost made it happen, and unfortunately his ghost control was just not quite good enough. But binski seems to be trying to turtle it in that position there, but now he's also got to push on the map here. +3 attack about halfway done. Ukko in a really nice scenario to try to go split things out. And okay, so interesting. Yeah, he's going to take the fight here with the mutas, but oh my goodness, Titan! The banelings, they just fall. Mutas on the backside. They cannot take this fight now. They got to back the hell on up. And suddenly this is feeling a little bit more possible for binski. That was 18 Banes, I think. And more and more, actually, we got a fight happening here, though. Oh. Is binski prepared? He took the good first fight, but the second one, it doesn't seem to be that it's going to be quite as good. But reinforcements on the backside. Good splits there on the Banes. They're really not going to get what they want. And here comes the army of binski once again. He actually took that fight pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, he split back just enough that the reinforcements could come through, and suddenly all the banelings are gone. They need to be replenished, as well as these Widowmines that are still here. That means that suddenly you have a position to push this 5th base from. The Thor is going to be pushed to the front. The Marines already spreading out in a pre-split as the Widowmines, they are going to get dragged away, and it looks like finally Ukko is going to be able to clean this up. The medevacs are going to have to get away. Reinforcements are going to have to be brought forward to support this and make sure that the Zerg just can't run it across the map. As we're looking at right now, I mean, a 7-base Zerg economy soon. Ukko continuing to grow, +3/+3. Adrenal glands now finished. And binski, I mean, behind all this, luckily has managed to establish his fifth base.
So funny seeing a Zerg and a Terran on roughly similar bases. Ukko, I guess Ukko's up 1 base down in terms of what he's actually mining from. And seeing the Zerg so far ahead in mineral income because it even has the mules land. But there we go. We should start to see that one equalize up just a little bit. The mutas, though, they're going to find these Marines on the left side. The drop gets cleaned up, and These are 2-1 mutas. They are battle mutas in the extreme in this game. They're gonna fight these. They're gonna fight the Marines. They're gonna fight the Thors a lot better than you might expect. But I guess there were too many Marines even for that one. But we got 3-3 just about done for Ukko. +2 flyer armor on the way as well. You hardly ever see 2-2 mutas.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting option here for Ukko. Of course, you can then transition it into Corruptors and Broodlords, but Broodlords obviously benefit much less from that attack upgrade. The Carapace is the important upgrade. As the melee attacks are done, ground Carapace is finished. These Mutas once again going to try and find their way into the main. And once again, it's only a singular missile turret. As binski, he's going to look for another attack. He has Widowmines here. He has only a singular Thor to help tank. Ooh, that Widowmine shot! Gets dragged all the way across the screen, manages to find a decent connection. Baneling's rolling on into a bunch of Marines, trying to drag some Widowmine shots of their own. Do a good job of that. Alright, though, the trade not quite going in favor of the Zerg, but he has so many Banelings here. And with no more Widowmines left, it feels like he can just roll on through. The Thor is going to try and soak up as much damage as he can. Reinforcements coming on through, but there's so many Banelings. The splits, though, are honestly disgusting here from binski, who's going to be able to mitigate most of the damage. The Remax, though, 74 Zerglings is on the way.
About to ask how much it even mattered, but the Marauders, at least, they stay alive. The reinforcements from binski continue to rally across the map. And that was one of those fights that Ukko took, and his goal was to wipe out the entire army. You don't move in with the entire army of the Zerg unless you're confident that you wipe the Terran out. So we have this fight happening here. More and more reinforcements. We're starting to see mutas pop a little bit, but it seems like Ukko does have what it takes to swing this fight back into the core bases of binski. You got to be careful, though. Reinforcements from the Terran are scary. Widowmines are going to try to drag on top of things, but that Widowmine doesn't even go off, and now Ukko, he's starting to camp the Terran production just a little bit. Marines are popping out to their doom. Marauders as well. Ukko now on top of the natural ramp here, and it feels like now, finally, in 17 minutes, he's been able to jump on top of that position he wants, but the big Widowmine shots, they're going to make a lot of these mutas a little bit less possible in this game. Even still, it is Lings and Banes and all these wonderful things on top of the Terran production. And you know what they say, tighten about camping a Terran's production.
Yeah, it looks like binski just got a little bit too aggressive. He had 5 bases, but he kept trying to push the issue. Now his barracks are going down. Widowmines are falling. The tank here at the 3rd will eventually fall as well. Only 4 SCVs have gone down, but the army, I mean, the army trade is enough to make it absolutely worthwhile here for Ukko, who's now ahead 60 supply. The Mutalists still trying to fly through. They are taking a lot of damage from these missile turrets, and eventually the Zerg will actually have to retreat. But it's going to be a Remax, and meanwhile the Terran is struggling to get above 100 supply.
I guess. Well, luckily, at least none of the barracks, or very few of the barracks, went down. So that's at least binski's not going to have to grin in barracks.
Absolutely is. I'm not even going to acknowledge that.
We're done here. On to the next thing.
But then, I mean, the good news here for binski is he does have these Widowmines continually set up, and he actually did get a 6th base behind all this. So if he has the time, if he's able to hold on, you know, he has a very, very good economy that's going to be able to continue to grow and continue to build up a strong army. The issue is you just lost so much there. That is the Terran. You're so slow to rebuild it. Now SCV is going to be pulled to help try and protect this planetary, but the Banelings are going to roll on through, and there's just no Marines. There's no army here for binski. A lot of the supply is in these Widowmines, and most of them are not really doing that much right now.
There are, I think for a second, there were about as many Widowmines as there were Marines in this game, which is not something that we see all that often. As the Marines, they get dropped down, but the mutas are feeding. They're not sharks, but they're very much experiencing a feeding frenzy. We got this base on the left side. binski's gonna try to pick up some SCVs. He says, yeah, I'll keep them alive, folks. It's gonna be a good time, but they're just gonna die where they were born, as the command center will fall here, dropping off to try to repair it. But nope, not gonna happen. Ukko, he wins game 1.
Yeah, but it was just a tale of that one push going a little bit too far. You find a decent trade, the Zerg remaxes, you have to pull back at that point. You can't keep rallying reinforcements across the map. And for binski, that was all it took for Ukko to be able to push that to a victory. But a very entertaining TVC from these two players. It feels like a matchup that both of them are very comfortable in.
Oh, absolutely. They, well, Whether actually, I'm not even going to say it feels like they're both comfortable, but they share a similar level of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And they share a similar ability to make each other uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And with Ukko taking that first one, it's going to be interesting to see what the idea is going to be as we head on to 2,000 atmospheres here for binski. I mean, I think the build order choice is very good in that game. You go for the TY211. It's a lot more economical, gets you into a good spot. And the issue just becomes a situation if you're playing against Ling Bane, and if you press too aggressively against Ling Bane, if you try and just take a straight up army versus army fight, that's when it's the strongest. And unfortunately, binski did that 2 times in a row. The first time he got away with it, the second time was not so lucky.
Absolutely. But we got a, I don't know, marginally smaller map in terms of, at least in terms of rush distance. We're going to move into 2,000 atmospheres for map 2. And while Hardwire arguably does favor the, I don't even arguably, Hardwire does favor the Zerg, 2,000 atmospheres is a lot more even. So we're going to have to see if we can get a game number 3, folks, or whether it's going to be clean 2-0 before we move into Vindicta versus Masa for our last game of the day. But for now, folks, game 2. In the bottom left here, in the right, he's up 1 in a scrappy game 1 for Apprentice Esports. His name is Ukko.
In the top right, did end up dropping that first game, but he looked very good in it. And let's see if he can bring it back in this series from License to Kill. It is binski.
I just love his name. It's like, I swear, there are a lot of great players in Europe, in Korea, all over the world, but I don't know that there is any region that has better names than North America. We have Pili Pili, we have binski, we have Ukko.
We got all the greats on. I would argue, you know, the name innovation. Like, what is that? Come on, it's just a word. It doesn't mean anything. The name binski, oh, that's unique. That's special.
It also doesn't mean anything, I don't think.
Well, I mean, technically innovation has meaning, but it's different. But yeah, in all seriousness, I do like how you get a wide variety of names in North America, where usually, in EU, a lot of them are these kind of like one words that are like, ooh, yes, very like Showtime, and you're like, ah, yeah, that's got some power behind it, Hero Marine, things like that. And then obviously in Korea, it's a lot of English words that the players like, and I think that obviously ends up being very interesting because you get then the association of an English word that has meaning to also a player.
Well, I mean, we all know that Korean players, they just take their names from Bohemian Rhapsody. Although less so now, but is this real life? Is just fantasy caught in a landslide? No escape from. We actually never had anyone named Landslide, which is kind of a shame now that I think about it.
Yeah, I feel like that would be a. I mean, we also didn't have any player named Galileo or Scabadoosh, so.
Yeah, but like it's that one refrain. It's that one refrain that had like a bunch of different names on it.
Yeah.
Bohemian Rhapsody. If we took the entire song, we could probably outfit every single player in like semi-professionally on up with names and still have words to spare.
Honestly, I wouldn't doubt it. It's a pretty long song. Have you ever listened to the whole thing? It's a lengthy boy.
I feel really offended that you just asked me if I've ever listened to the entirety of Bohemian Rhapsody. Like, come on, dude. I grew up under a rock. I didn't grow up that far under a rock.
It was rhetorical. But we are going to see this Reaper eventually die. He can't run away from the fast Zerglings. There we go. Going to find the kill. And as for the build from binski, it's going to be the exact same thing as he did in the last game. Obviously, this is the build that he probably feels the most comfortable with. And you can't blame him. It's a really solid build. If you are a Terran player and you say, well, I really like the 2-1-1, but it always feels like you know, I'm never able to macro out of it. Well, this might be a build to try. It's a lot more economical. It's a lot safer, especially in the early game. And you still get, you know, to micro your marine drops like every Terran wants to.
That you do. Ukko handled it rather well in game one, though. I was worried. There was a thin timing where Ukko had, what, 12 lings? He had some queens. And you're like, okay, no, you really want to have more lings out to deal with this. So you do want to make sure that you're going to be okay. But binski not able to quite capitalize on it as well as he would have liked. And then Ukko, eventually, he got his 30, 40 lings and was able to make everything happen there. And that timing was missed. And then we went into this long slogfest of a game that eventually Ukko was able to seesaw in his favor. But to put to go back to the naming thing for just a second, Titan, apparently Ukko is old man in Finnish.
Interesting. I don't know what I'm going to do with that information, but I'm sure I will use it in the future.
Well, you know, when we're finished with this cast, you will be an old man.
I feel like I'm already an old man. I sit in a chair so much that, like, I feel like my bones are slowly just starting to decay, and then I won't be able to stand up by the end of the summer. I'll just be like, oh, all
right, so
young kids.
I got you. Next series, we're gonna have you cast via interpretive dance. Ooh, nice catch there. Ukko gets the 2 Hellions that are just looking to put a little pressure on the map. It's interesting that binski separated them out, right? You have 2. Yeah. Generally, it's like you put the 4 together and they have a little bit more creep control.
Yeah, and I think he did that because the first 2 were so low from sniping the initial creep tumor. The other 2 came in and he retreated those initial 2 and never did kind of bring them back to join up with the others. But now we're gonna have this double drop move on out as the 3rd base is landing. It's gonna attempt to try and pressure this 4th base. There is a good amount of lings already out. Sitting at 33 is very, very healthy. The queen count at 9, of course, means that you have so far 5 here for spreading creep, and then of course 1 for each base on the injects.
Wait.
And so we'll see.
Titan, why are you telling me that we have no queens? You said there are 9 queens. Why are there no queens? Anyway, now there are 8, so we can talk about it as if it is a real number. The bio looking to move on forward here. Transfuses on these queens are good. Lings getting on top of things. The 4th base takes half damage, but that will be the extent of it. And now it's the Lings. They sit under the Medivacs. Well, they're not going to pop out for quite a while here. They're going to force to go back home. Ukko losing a queen a little bit more than he lost last game, but he'll be fine.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to see a very, very quick Hydra Den here from Ukko. So he's going to be heading into that Lurker Tech on 2000 Atmosphere. Still a very good map for it with the amount of high ground you have, with, of course, the Zelnaga Watchtowers, and, of course, just the layout of this map with the choke points around each base. Hey, Lurker's still a pretty good unit, even with the nerfs that they ended up getting. It's just that you can't... You just can't be as aggressive with them.
Yeah, the entire point of the style that Ukko is playing is to sit back, defend, expand your creep as well as you can, and then hit that timing. When you have Hive, when you have Lurkers, when you're able to sweep across the map. And before then, yeah, it is just a defensive game that Ukko will be playing, which is very different. Is very different from the game he played in game number 1, which was all about backstabbing and getting mutas in places, especially with those 2-2 battle mutas. An incredible thing indeed. And binski, well, he's got his pressure happening right now. And he's actually going Widow Mines, which, considering this is Hydroling Bane, I'm far less of a fan than I was last game.
Yeah, the tanks are very, very nice against Hydroling Bane. As here we go, this round already set up here for Ukko, who's just going to be able to crush through this. The Marines have to be evacuated. The tanks can get a little bit more value, but that is about it. And beautiful defense from the apprentice Zerg, who's already going to be working on Groove Spines, has that muscular augments finished already and heading towards that hive for the Lurkers. And at this point, obviously, binski should know the fact that this is going to be Lurkers. He saw the Hydras, and there's only one way that that is going to end up going, as that's a great cleanup on a lot of those Lings to pick up and get on out. binski able to find at least a good trade towards the end of that as he's working on his 4th command center, and hopefully is going to soon start working on a 3rd factory, because one of the biggest adjustments that we saw when Lurkers were at their strongest was that Terrans would start producing from 3 factories so that they could have 2 Widow Mines and 2 tanks at a time. So you have those tanks to sit back on and turtle up when eventually the Lurkers are out on the map and being active.
That's fair. And, you know, eventually Ghost Academy, which is the true answer to things. Ukko has his 5th base on the way. Is Binski actually doing a pretty good job multi-pronging here? He's got one army on the left and a bigger army on, or bigger army on the left, and the more harassment force on the right. 2-2 is going to be done for Binski just a little bit quicker, so he may have that opportunity available to him. And you say there's only way this goes into quick lurkers. Well, that's actually not what Ukko is doing. We don't have well, we do have an infestation pit, but we don't have a hive on the way just yet. Looks like he wants to stay on Hydroling Bane just a little bit longer, which is a valid idea, as this Widow Mine, oh, thank you, detection, the last second. That Widow Mine was primed for a massive connection. Point being, when we saw Terran players really overreacting and going for quick ghosts and things like that to the lurker play, we started to see players like Solar go and stay on Lingbane Hydra a lot longer and then just crash waves and waves of Banes into the ghosts, and they were just not able to trade effectively.
Yeah, and I just look like that's going to be the plan right now for Ukko, who is, you know, sitting healthily at 5 bases. Of course, you have the 4th for the Terran that has been established, is going to be morphed into that planetary. And tanks are in continued production. There was a good trade for Binski on the left side, even without that Widowmine shot. Still, folks fired down a lot of Banelings when he had the chance, and is once again going to be going into this double-pronged harassment, where you have this small group on the right side, and then a much larger army on the left that you're going to use to try and trade aggressively. As the nice catch out there on a few Lings. Widowmines at the tank line, and it looks like Ukko has actually committed a lot of army over to the right side, manages to collapse on top of it. That also means that, well, Binski was not pushing the left fast enough to really be able to punish, but now it gives Binski time to prepare on that left flank as counterattack going to come through, and Ukko really trying to be all over the map right now.
That he is. Now, Widowmine shot starts going to be fairly decent, but these tanks are falling. They're not getting enough shots to really validate their worth at this point. And in the meantime, Ukko in the 3rd base, he wiped out the entire mineral line. 23 workers go down. Ukko absolutely, he had a license to kill in Binski's 3rd base, and his economy not really where it wants to be just yet. No 3-3 on the way. He got tech for ghosts, but no ghosts on the way just yet, which I do like. You only want to move into that ghost tech once the lurkers are defined and there. But now that Binski has lost his agency on the right side, it really is dependent on this person on the left, which once again, Ukko is going to look to clean up. Nice Widowmine shot on the Hydras. You very rarely get one of those. And in general, there's no detection with this Army Titan.
Yeah. That means that these Widowmines are going to stay. They're going to get a chance to recharge and have a chance to fire again. The Overseer is finally brought on over. I gotta say, so far, Ukko has been doing a great job of splitting off smaller groups of Zerglings to absorb Widowmine fire. And that's a really, really important part of these fights, so that those Widowmines aren't hitting massive connections onto Banelings and Lings. As the Lurker Den is finally on the way, it's almost done, but you're also seeing Adrenal Glands, the +3 armor, and that +1 range at the same time. It's a very, very nice timing here for Ukko, who said, all right, listen, I stayed on the Lingbane. I wasn't able to overwhelm you with it. Now I'll transition into the Lurkers.
Yep. And there they come. +1 range just about done. We have all the upgrades that Ukko could ever want. He's looking to try to take this fight, but Widowmines to start are going to be rather nice indeed. And Titan, it's always interesting. When we look at a Terran fighting a Zerg, or really a Terran fighting anything in general, there are always 2 phases of any fight. There's the fight where the burst comes out, whether it's Disruptors or Banes or whatever it is. And then once that's done, then the Terran stims forward. And then you have the next version of the fight that the Terran tends to do a lot better in. So it's all incumbent upon Ukko right now to win the first fight so he doesn't have to take the second one. And in that last fight top, he didn't win the first one, so he did take a little bit more damage there, but Ukko on the right side is finding value on the left side as well, knocking these tanks down. The Banelings look to roll on in, but there's actually not a lot of Banes here, and Binski looking to stim on forward, collapsing on top of this army. Still no lurkers on this side of the map. Ukko, he's trying to find equalizing damage, but the Marines have broken this base, and that's a big problem now for our apprentice Terran player or Zerg player, but it looks like actually the Ling Bane rally or the Ling Hydra rally will be enough for now. Meanwhile, on the other side of the map, Ukko breaking this 3rd base down, 6 SCVs fall, but arguably, even more importantly, lots of supply depots die.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to be going down to just a 180 supply cap here for Binski, who's still trying to fight here. Nice Unburrow to save one of those Widowmine shots. Is still going to try and keep pressing on. The real worry here is actually a lack of medevacs with this attack. And so you're not going to be able to evacuate all of these units finally. Excuse me, more are coming in to support. But lurkers are now out, and there's a good amount of them. 7 already on the map. Only 3 ghosts available for Binski, who's no longer going to be splitting the map. He's going to look to try and consolidate his forces, but already one of those ghosts getting picked off. Lurkers now burrowing forward, and they might not have that super fast burrow anymore, but if you're caught out, they can still surprise you.
Well, they wouldn't have the super fast burrow anyways, Titan, because that upgrade is not done yet. It is just ranged, and they're going to get on top of things anyways. But once again, where's our detection? There are so many Widowmines just littering this side of the map. They're finding... Oh, man, for a second, it looked like they were going to get some second shots off. But binski is still finding tremendous value with them. But I worry now, as the supplies continue to separate, as the economy of binski continues to be really not all that great. He's only on 4 bases. His third base has been broken time and time and time again. Where does he go from here? He does not have +3 armor. His ghosts are dying kind of in all these fights. In fact, he has lost... Well, he's only lost 1 ghost right now, but he's only made 7. He doesn't feel like he is quite where he needs to be just yet to be able to contest this lurker style that Ukko has built for himself. In fact, we don't even have any ghosts in production right now, and he only has 6 on the map.
Yeah, only 6 ghosts, only 3 tanks. It just doesn't feel like the army composition is here for binski, who's trying to push the front with a smaller group of Marines, but that's not going to work out. And suddenly, look at the supplies. They are no longer what they used to be. binski is dropping drastically. He's going to try and push down these lurkers. Some snipes are going to come through. The Liberator should siege up as the snipes should finish off the rest of this army. Gets the last lurker, but 15 SCVs go down. Still 61 left here for binski, but mind you, he's only on 4 bases. A 5th hasn't been taken yet. It is double tank production, but it just feels like he's bleeding extra units, you know, across the map when where he really shouldn't be.
I mean, that's fair. But also, I mean, he's keeping binski down here. Snipe's going to go down on lurkers that are not even burrowed just yet. Nice, honestly, really nice ghost control from binski. It's always a question when we're looking at these players that are brand new to us, or just maybe not at the highest of levels, of how good are all of their technicalities, because there's a reason they're not winning DreamHacks yet. It's because they don't have everything. They don't have the game sense and the micro and the macro and everything else. It's, what in the world is that queen doing on the bottom side of the map?
She is contemplating many life choices that she has made. We're not going to bother her, Bayo. Oh, never mind.
She's still contemplating her life choices. Like, yeah. Ukko realized the queen's there. He's like, yeah, I'll keep it there. It's fine.
As the lurkers are going to push forward now. This is a very, very deep line here for binski of Bio, but the ghosts are a little bit far forward, and now the lurkers pushing on top of everything. The scans go down, but the Ling Bane just absolutely blows up the tanks. And it feels like Ukko, just approach to this late game has been a whole lot better. binski, he's not been able to turtle up. He's not been able to, I think, split the map like he would like and get his defenses fortified. You know, his tank count has constantly been knocked down. He's only at 5. His ghost count he hasn't been able to replenish. And he's been trying to be aggressive, but at this point it's starting to be more detrimental than it is useful.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like we're entering the stage in the game where the Terran just really has... This is what it was for, the Queen, to defend against the 5th... It's not going to work, folks. It's a bunch of 3-2 bio. The Queen is dead pretty soon, but I had a belief that it was going to shoot down that command center. It was going to shoot down the orbital that was once the main and just find tremendous value. Of course, now Ukko trying to take this fight. Tanks are actually in a really nice spot. It's not the easiest fight here for Ukko to take, but he says, I don't really care about how good it is or how not good it is. I have the supply. I've got a lot of stuff. I am a rich man. I'm going to hit you with my wallet. Here we go. 1-2 across the face. And binski, he's going to try to pick up the gold coins that come spilling out of the wallet on the floor and make something out of it, but it's still hard.
Yeah, I mean, knocks down most of the tanks, and again, when you just continually lose tanks, it's so hard to get the critical mass that you need to defend against the lurkers. And that means that the lurkers can be aggressive now as you're going to try and take this fight, but the Bane's just going to roll on through. I think binski realizes that's over. GG will be called, and Ukko, he's going to get the 2.